Next, we have Nicola Nation, who has recently been appointed the new CEO of Akina Foundation, following on from Louise Aiken. Before that, she held several roles in procurement, and the Akina Foundation is an impact consulting entity. So if you are thinking about how to do impact and building those capabilities, this may be an organization that may be able to help you. And they have done extensive work for the government on social procurement and also enabling impact investing in New Zealand. So over to you, Nicola. Thank you very much for your time. Are you there, Nicola?
Kia ora. Yes, I am. Just checking that you could see my screen, and I can see that you can.
Perfect.
Ina mana, ina reo, ina karanga maha o te wā. Tina koutou katoa. Ko tanga te kio, te mona. Ko te awa kairangi, te awa. Ko Irish, te iwi. Ko Buck Nation, te whānau. No te whanganui a tara o. Ke Akina Foundation ohi mahi ana. Ko rangatira nui toku ingoa. Oh, sorry, toku tungumahi. And ko Nicola Nation toku ingoa. Nō reira, tina koutou, tina koutou, tina koutou katoa. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me along. As Sebastian said, I am the Chief Executive of the Akina Foundation. I have been with Akina for 3.5 years as the General Manager, and stepped into the CE role last month, which is a delight and a challenge, and I'm learning something new every day, and have particularly learned a lot already this morning. So thank you, everyone, for your presentations. I'm going to briefly give you an outline around about who Akina is, in case you may not have heard of us. I'm sure you all have, but in case you haven't, what Akina means when we talk about impact. And it was interesting just now to hear Craig and Sebastian refer to all the different terms that are used in impact investing in this part of the world. What is impact investing through Akina's lens, and some common questions or concerns that are raised around that. So who is Akina? We exist to transform the New Zealand's economy through the power of impact and the power of enterprise. We're Aotearoa, New Zealand's leading impact development consultancy, and we believe that business, that enterprise, can be used as a force for good, that business should deliver not only financial returns, but positive social, environmental, and cultural outcomes. And that is at the heart of everything that we do at Akina. It cuts across all of our work and is deeply embedded in all our work. We work in 4 main ways, 4 key areas. We help businesses to start well, run well. We help them with investment, it's an important lever, and procurement as a secondary important lever. We have community partnerships. We work in the impact capability space. And as I said, we help with access to markets and access to capital. One thing that's a bit different about Akina to some other impact enterprises or impact organisations working in the space is that we work right across the ecosystem and right across the economy. We have clients in the private sector. We've just finished a large government partnership and have deep relationships in with government. And we work with impact-led businesses, be they social enterprises, Māori, Pacifica business, or community enterprises, to help all of those parts of the economy work in tandem to help them understand, increase, and amplify their impact. And we do that in 4 main ways: capability building services, where we provide on-the-ground support to enterprises to help them to grow. We provide extensive impact consultancy advice, ranging from impact strategy work right through to measurement, reporting, frameworks, and communication around what impact is. And we work on the 2 levers around social procurement, introducing social enterprises, impact-led businesses to procurement opportunities, and of relevance to today's discussion, impact investment. So providing opportunities for impact-led businesses to take on capital to help them grow and increase their impact. So in Akina's view, in our context, what is impact? So as I've said, this is how Akina defines impact: the positive social or environmental change, the outcomes that happen because of your activity. So if you think about an activity, it might be running skills training, it might be a doctor seeing patients frequently on 15-minute blocks in their surgery. The impact is the effect that these activities have, the outcome. The impact is what changes because of the activity. And there might be several steps in that process. Simply running skills-based training does not necessarily lead to the outcome of people getting long-term jobs. To get a long-term job, you need training, but also access to job opportunities and the skills to secure those jobs. So there's a number of steps between the activity and the outcome. And we work with our clients to understand those steps through what we call a theory of change. It might be called an impact framework, to help them articulate and understand short, medium, and long-term impacts. Now that's important, as we saw from the earlier presentation today around TCFD reporting, which is coming at a rate of knots, understanding, measuring, and communicating impacts across a time scale. This is important for a number of reasons. Understanding your impact. Your employees and your customers are demanding that you understand your impact. In a 2019 Colmar Brunton report, 93% of Kiwis say they won't buy from an unethical company. If you're running a business, it's really important that you are conscious and you have some intentionality around the values of that business. And it's well known that a large number of our younger parts of our community would leave an employer actively seeking out employers whose purpose and values link with their own. This is also important because government is demanding it more and more. TCFD reporting will be coming through to government and not just large businesses by 2024. Government social procurement activity is increasingly focusing on what they call broader outcomes, which is in essence the social procurement activity embedded in their existing procurement. And their $45 billion worth of spend and the $10 billion worth of spend at the local government level. In 2018, government rewrote the government procurement rules, and this was somewhat of a game changer that we're still seeing the impacts of today. And they are now requiring government agencies to seek to understand what they call the broader outcomes of the procurement activity that is going on. There are targets now for government spend with Māori business, which again comes back to delivering impact. Government's priority areas within their procurement spend, they have three different priority areas focusing on employment and also reducing government's carbon footprint. So all of this is driving more of government's business towards those businesses who understand their impact. And if you do business with government, you need to understand this. But perhaps of more relevance to our conversation today is around the demands from investors. When I started at Akina in 2018, and I'll touch on this in a bit more detail, we, along with Newground Capital and Impact Ventures, launched New Zealand's first impact investment fund. We can see now that in 2020, the estimated market size of impact investing in New Zealand is $3.3 billion. It has grown exponentially since 2018, something that we at Akina are delighted by, because it shows that more and more investors are thinking about what they are doing with their investment. When you take out the green bond market, which is also growing, we've talked about that a lot today, 608 million is invested in what we call impact investing. Now, currently, as we speak, there's an additional 200 million that is looking to be raised across a number of funds. ACC has raised a climate fund at $50 million. Foundation North has just released a fund which has just made its first investment called Te Pā Ki Te Rangi, and that fund's at the $20 million mark. There are other climate funds being raised at the moment, including one by Trust Waikato focused on infrastructure at the $100 million mark. So this area is growing all the time, which is a factor of the success of impact investment, the fact that it's better understood, but it has been proven through the work of our Impact Enterprise Fund and others, that you can receive a financial return as well as doing business in a way that is positively sustainable to the environment, that has positive social and environmental outcomes. When we think about impact investing, how do we define this? Intentional investments made to generate positive, measurable, this bit's really important, measurable social and or environmental impact alongside a financial return. So there's a continuum of impact of investment, from purely financially driven investment, slightly old school, maybe the coal industry, the British American tobacco industry, and many have moved away from this more towards ESG type investments, financially driven investments, which focus on the opportunities and actively negative screen harmful products. ESG investing was probably considered innovative about 10 years ago. All Kiwi savers and New Zealand super funds take the approach of ESG investing. Positive screening, actively looking for things like gender diversity, looking at things like gender pay gaps, diversity on boards, those kinds of things. Good examples of this are Spark and Kathmandu. When Akina talks about impact investing, it actually goes a step further. We're talking about sustainability as well as impact, the intention to build and grow impact as well as providing a financial return. It's not an easy ask, but likewise, it's not impossible. So the companies that we have invested in, the companies that Akina works with every day, are purpose-led businesses that are driven by their impact, and they, as well as providing a financially driven investment, because they recognise that to grow and be sustainable, they need to be financially sustainable. When we invest for impact, we're intentionally investing for specific impact outcomes. We look to understand the impact of the businesses that we are investing in, and check that those businesses are also understanding measuring their impact, that impact is measurable and can be communicated back through to stakeholders. So the impact investing market, as I mentioned, since we launched our fund in New Zealand in 2018, we have seen the market continue to grow globally. A great example is that 2 years ago in 2019, an Australian impact investment fund took 2 years to get the investment capital on board that it needed for its first fund. And then recently, just this year, it went to establish its second fund. It raised the money that it needed in just 4 weeks. More investment capital was raised for clean technology funds in the first months of 2020 than the total amount raised over the previous 5 years. Impact investment is growing. It's growing at pace here in Aotearoa, as well as globally. And here's a little infographic to show how that has grown in New Zealand. As I mentioned on my earlier slide, 80% of this is in sustainable bonds, and 608 million is in the assets that exclude bonds, such as the fund that Akina runs and others. So here in Aotearoa, what makes up the impact investment landscape? We have the fund that Akina and New Ground Capital run, called the Impact Enterprise Fund. We have Soul Capital, Purpose, Ki Pai Ki Te Rangi from Foundation North that I mentioned earlier, and He Puna Hapori. So whilst that might look like, in some respects, a small number of impact funds, it's also important to note that these funds sort of play at different parts of the growth ecosystem or the growth trajectory. So we're looking at Akina and through the IEF at early stage venture. Soul Capital seems to be more focused on investing smaller amounts, with purpose capital investing larger amounts with a slightly lesser financial return. Then the Tipai Ki Te Rangi Fund, again, has a slightly lesser return than some of the others. And then the Te Puna Hapori Fund is looking at investing in impact-led activities that are happening in the infrastructure space, particularly focused on reducing waste and on the climate impact of various infrastructure projects. And they have a financial return target of 5%. The Impact Enterprise Fund, as an example, has a financial return target of 15%, like 15% financial returns for any of the investments that we're making. So there's a range of different financial returns across the different types of opportunities, and a range of investments depending on the maturity of the various entities that are being funded through this direct capital approach. The fund that we launched in 2018 was almost $9 million. We have a 10-year horizon. The last investments will be made before February of next year. So we're looking at investing in another couple of entities. We do prefer the expansion stage. As I've said before, that the impact needs to be meaningful and needs to be measurable with a 15% target return. This here you'll see is just a pic of Chris, who's part of our management team. And we have so far made 8 different investments in a really wide range of impact-led businesses. It's that direct capital investment, and I'm really proud when I think about the range of investments that we have found, or the range of enterprises that we have found through some really detailed pipeline analysis and due diligence to invest in. We've got Melon Health providing mental health support for teenagers through a technology solution. Grounded, that I'll talk about a little bit more, which is provides compostable packaging. Waikato, a seaweed and organic fertilizer company. ZeroJet, which looks at electric outboard motors for boats. Learn Coach, who with Akina has been involved with for a few years, provide an online study platform and tutorials for secondary school students, and they're the only online platform that has been provided through accredited by the government. Zencovery, looking at reducing emissions in metal waste, who won the Callaghan Innovation Sea Prize in 1920. Certis Bio, who are reducing waste in food production, and Tether, who are looking at different types of investment. So as I said, these are the investments that we have made. We've got a 10-year horizon looking at various follow-on opportunities, and another couple of investments to announce between now and February, which is really exciting. I thought it was worth mentioning actually that the Akina Impact Investment Readiness Program, so we recognised about 5 or 6 years ago that businesses were often wanting to take on capital, but were at sort of such a difficult stage that they didn't have the funding that was required to even get them ready to seek investment. And so 5 years ago, we started the Impact Investment Readiness Program, which was initially a fund of $50,000, which we granted out. Now, 5 years later, the fund is $275,000, and we provide grants of up to $30,000 to help impact-led businesses get ready to take on investment. This year, we have announced 11 recipients of Impact Investment Readiness grants, which is great. We'd like to do a lot more, as we have over 200 applicants. The interesting thing about the Impact Investment Readiness Program, or it's noteworthy, that there is a $1 to $25 return on this program. So the work that we are doing, getting the market ready, building the pipeline of investable enterprises, for every dollar that we grant out, and Learn Coach was one of those enterprises, they have gone on to generate $25 worth of investment funding as a result of the grant, or assisted by the grant that we have provided to them. So this year's partners are Kiwi Bank, the Tyndall Foundation, the Rotary Club of Wellington, Well Energy Trust, and Foundation North. And it's to Akina's continual frustration that despite demonstrating the benefits of this to government doesn't seem willing to assist in terms of providing that grant-based support to impact-led businesses to help them get ready to take on investment. Now, within our fund, there's been a number of different measurement tools mentioned today, so I thought it would be a good idea if I threw another one in there. We work with or a partner to the Impact Management Project, and this is the tool that we currently use to help measure impact within the fund. You'll see there that there are 5 different dimensions, and the enterprises that we work with are asked to describe their impact on a spectrum, which I'll show you using this kind of language. What is your impact? Who experiences the outcome of the activity? How much? So what's the extent of that impact? Would it have attribution? Would this change likely have happened anyway? And importantly, what is the risk? So I've got an example here of how our investments have aligned with the impact management project. And this is what we use as the basis of our impact assessment. So in the case of Waikato, the seaweed company, ZeroJet and Zencovery, the benefit comes out to the stakeholders. So the enterprise is not only acting to avoid harm, but is also generating positive effects on people and the planet. Now in the next box there, Melon, Learn Coach and Grounded, our compostable packaging company, our online coaching company, and our mental wellbeing technology, the enterprise acts not only to avoid harm, but also helps to provide a solution for those that are impacted by the problem that they are solving. But there are many frameworks out there. This is one that we use to help measure and understand the impact. And then you'll see there, what I like about this is very clear and simple language. So the enterprises are assessed, and you'll see that it's the orange dots there around who they are serving, what the contribution is, what the risk is, etc. And this is the Impact Management Project is a global evaluation tool. So just briefly then, some concerns that are often raised about impact investing. The most common one being that it is risky, or that the returns might, hold on, I've got this slide on. Yeah, that it is risky. So what we will see here is this table here is showing the extent of risks. So you've got impact risk at the right hand side here, which is actually, you'll note, less than ESG risk. But the biggest risk to the execution of any business, which really comes as no surprise, is around business model execution and the risk associated with management, or in this case, poor risk. So the risk of being an impact-led business, and that meaning that you are more likely to fall over, is in essence, that is not the big contributor that it might be perceived to be. The biggest risks to business are around how their business model is executed and how management go about operating within that business model and managing their risks. So that particular risk is present in all types of investments, whether they're simply financially driven or are an impact business. And just quickly then, the concerns around delivering financial returns. This research here demonstrates that over 90% of impact investments perform in line or outperform their financial expectations, showing that concern around financial returns also has not borne out to be the case. So this is my final slide here, which is really more at the consumer level, something for people to think about. In the New Zealand context, there will be a large amount of money passing to younger generations our baby boomers move off and there is a larger portion of inheritance than there has been previously. Think about where you put your money. It's very easy to check where your KiwiSaver is invested, and we have a presentation from Barry from Mindful Money later on today. And yeah, in our view, you should choose impact every time, because why wouldn't you? It's more than the icing on the cake. It's the reason for being. And that was it from me.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicola. We've got a couple of quick questions that I'll fire at you. I think a couple of them might be yes, no type ones. So the first one is the Impact Enterprise Fund going to do a second fund or another round of raising funds?
Yeah, so great question. So the IEF board are currently considering that question, and we haven't made a decision at this point.
Great, thank you. Just sort of carrying on from earlier questions, I was wondering, do you think the word impact should be used in secondary market investments?
Yes, I do. I think it depends on the intentionality of the individual who is making the secondary investment. If their intention is all around impact, then in our view, that's the main thing. That's what counts.
Okay, I might follow up with you on that later. We have one more question from Jack. Are you able to give an example of a specific barrier for New Zealand's impact investing pipeline compared to overseas? For example, a lack of capability in financial structuring or a specific sector like agri, etc. And, you know, is there a solution to these barriers? Yeah,
so gosh, great question. Yes, I can point to many. The one that springs to mind that we at Arkina, through our government partnership, have worked really hard to try and resolve is actually government's role in all of this, and government understanding the importance of impact-led business and actually putting some funding towards growing capability right across the spectrum of impact-led business, be it around their capital raising or their impact model. And the example that I gave around the Impact Investment Readiness Grant is the best one that I can give. So I think government support is a barrier, or an opportunity, sorry.
Great, thank you. We'll do one more and then we'll move on. Oh yeah, there it is. Ken says he got asked to explain the difference between the terms impact and outcomes. Could you maybe clarify that for us?
I don't know that there is a difference. So we describe the outcome of your activity as being your impact.
Great, thank you.
The impact derives from the activity.
And I'm sure you know, you're open to questions and further conversations. People can probably reach out to you through the Aotearoa website, or you know, your team, if they want to collaborate on anything. So thank you very much for your time, Nicola.
Please do. Thanks for having me.
For discussions in the future.
Ka kite.
Ka kite.